Sharp, Jamie Maggio in for Jenny Taft. Jamie, good morning to you. What are you guys talking about on this Friday morning?
Good morning, Jenna. Coming up on Undisputed, how much trouble are the Falcons in after their heartbreaking loss in Philly last night? And will Cam Newton expose the Cowboys on Sunday? Skip and Shannon will pick all the big games. Plus, Greg Jennings and Brian Cox are in studio with us. Undisputed coming up next. Jenna, back to you.
All right, Jamie, thank you. It's time now for us to go viral. LeBron James and Ben Simmons were balling out in New York City yesterday, which led to this. LeBron posting this picture of him dunking, and someone took notice. Tom Brady commented on the picture, "Damn, bro, come play tight end. You and Gronk would be unstoppable." I thought it would be about the shorts, but nice.
Well, listen, we're not even going to comment on the shorts. I feel like Russell Westbrook is to blame for
all of it.
For the shorts, man. We don't need to go back to the Stockton era of shorts.
No, we can leave that where it was at.
Now, there you go, LeBron is a tight end. Now, Chris Carter says defensive end, pass rusher for LeBron as a football player. Well, what say you?
Pass rusher is more valuable than tight end, so I would go with pass rusher. LeBron can get after it no matter what position he plays because he's one of the best athletes the planet has ever seen.
You almost had that statement right. You said one of the best athletes the planet has ever seen.
One of.
I mean, he's the best athlete the planet's ever seen. We know this, right?
Okay, excuse me. All right.
Football, futsal, he'd be good at. Right. Soccer, the greatest goalkeeper in world history.
This will go on for an hour and a
Spike
half.
ball.
On to the rematch of last year's NFC divisional game, and like last year, the Eagles won. This time, thanks to 2 touchdowns from Jay Ajayi, like last year. Matt Ryan and the Atlanta offense stalled out in the red zone multiple times, including during the final possession. The Eagles offense was sputtering so much behind Nick Foles, they had to dust out the old Philly special again. After the game, Foles discussed what went into that decision.
Honestly, we were both thinking the same thing at the same time. I went over there to talk to him and say this might be a good time, and he pointed to the call sheet, and I was like, that's what I was coming over here for. So it worked again.
The biggest thing again, no panic on the sideline, resiliency, toughness, hanging with each other through all the, kind of the ups and downs, the ebb and flow of the game, the mistakes, the penalties, turnover, just the guys hanging together. Again, there was no panic tonight.
So when you get your chances against a good defense like that, you've got to capitalize on your opportunities. So disappointed. I thought we battled. We fought like crazy. We knew it was going to be a tough game coming in here. It was going to be in a 60-minute game. It was that way. But it's disappointing to not leave here with a win.
All right, we found out before the game that Carson Wentz could be out for several weeks now, so this will be Nick Foles' team in the meantime. Nick, are you confident in the Eagles and Foles after what you saw last night?
Oh, I'm not confident in Nick Foles at all. Not at all. I don't know how anyone could be. This is the Nick Foles that I thought we were going to see for his entirety of his time as an Eagles starter when Carson Wentz got hurt last year. It's why I declared the Eagles dead on arrival, no matter if they got the 1 seed or not, because this was the caliber of quarterback play I thought they were going to get. And you can't win 3 consecutive playoff games, which they were going to need to with this caliber of quarterback play. But the moment Case Keenum threw that pick 6 in the NFC Championship game, the Holy Ghost got Nick Foles, and for 7 quarters, he played all-time great football. He was perfect on 3rd down. He made every throw you had to make, but that's not who he is.
No.
He's a hell of a lot closer to the guy he was yesterday, and the guy he was in the preseason, and the guy he was before the NFC Championship game than who he was in that 2-game brilliant run that no one can ever take from him. He gets that ring forever, that MVP forever. So, no, I'm not confident about Foles at all. But I'm not that worried about the Eagles at all either. Not when the defense can do that to that offense, and you have Tampa and Indy as your next 2 opponents, not when it looks like while everyone is still getting their legs underneath them, either from a conditioning standpoint or because the weather's so hot everywhere in the country right now, it feels from a cramping standpoint, the Eagles can say, hey, Haloti Ngata, only need you for a few snaps. Michael Bennett, we only need you in certain situations. Fletcher Cox, we want you most of the game, but we can even give you breathers. Like, when they have such a dominant unit up front, and they can do that to Atlanta, no, I'm not worried about Philly. And that's even expecting Nick Foles to be close to what he was yesterday.
Yeah, I'm not worried about Philly either. Now, I do believe that Nick Foles can be a good enough quarterback in a small sample size, which is what we saw last year. So if Carson Wentz has to be out for the first month and a half of the season, I'm not going to panic just because the supporting cast is good enough. And because of what they did last year, you hear Doug Peterson and you heard Nick Foles after that game. They talked about having the confidence and not panicking. You didn't see that. After having the first quarter as bad as any first quarter that this Eagles team has had in the last couple of seasons, you saw they were able to bounce back from that. They only had 68 yards in total offense at the end of the first half. But they came back in the second half, leaned on that run game. After they were able to get some momentum, after they ran Philly, you saw the run game become a factor late in that game. The big guys up front leaning on an undersized Atlanta Falcons defensive front. I said yesterday that if this team was going to win, they were going to have to hold the ball 32, 33 minutes. That's exactly what they did in this game, and that was the difference. 17 carries for 97 yards in the second half. That was the difference in this game. That's why the Eagles match up well against anybody, regardless of who's under center, because they have one of the best offensive lines and thereby one of the best running games in the league.
And you mentioned they ran Philly. Now, they called it Philly, but it wasn't the play they ran at the goal line.
No.
It's the play the Patriots tried to run against them and failed because Brady couldn't make the catch. And that might seem like a small point, but I do like the swagger of this Eagles team.
Yeah.
And I think while they're out there trying to beat the Atlanta Falcons, I think they were also needling New England. I really believe that was a little poke in the eye to the Pats that, oh, okay, we're going to run the exact play that you guys couldn't run against us. And that is what turned the game from their offense's perspective. They got a little flow. They actually were able to move the ball somewhat after that, mostly because of what you're saying, the Falcons' defense tiring and wearing down. But also that gave them some, I think, very critical momentum in that spot.
Can we talk about the Falcons' offense for just a second? Because all we talked about all offseason was how powerful this offense was going to be with these weapons. None of them really played in the preseason. They were going to be fresh. They were going to be ready to go. They worked on the red zone, supposedly, so all the problems they had last year they were going to fix. And what happened with what we saw last night, Chris?
Well, they became one-dimensional. They couldn't run the football. And I think we had the high expectations for this Falcons offense because it was already a good offensive unit. And they went out and spent a first-round draft pick on Calvin Ridley. So they're telling you what their identity is going to be. We think we can score a lot of points, and we think our defense is going to be playing with the lead, and they're going to be able to get after it. But that's not what happened, and that's in large part because the offense stalled on the first two drives in those goal-to-goal situations. When you get down there against a team as good as the Philadelphia Eagles are, you've got to convert. You've got to put 7 on the board. You can't settle for 3, and you certainly can't have a turnover on downs at the goal line. Those things can't happen. If Atlanta's able to convert on those first 2 red zone possessions, we're talking about a different game in terms of the complexion and probably a different outcome. So a little bit disappointing to see the Atlanta Falcons, how their season ended a year ago, them not being able to fix those issues a year later.
It's well more than a little disappointing in my eyes. This is the worst case scenario for a start of a season for Atlanta. The reason you underachieved last year was because you were incompetent in the red zone. You had Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, a healthy offensive line, Mohamed Sanu, and you were a bottom 8 red zone team. That is indefensible. All offseason, your number one priority, improve on that. You said you improved on that. And your first drive of the season, tick, 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 6 plays, you get it to the 5-yard line. And what do? You try to prove something you're not. You take Julio Jones off the field for all 4 plays. You go jumbo. You try to run into the teeth of one of the best fronts, maybe the best front in the entire league. You run all 4 plays to who? Devontae Freeman, and you get stuffed. You get the ball right back. And what do when you get to the red zone again? You don't even look Julio's way. Bully for you. You had him on the field this time at least. What do you do at the end of the game? Matt Ryan. You get the ball. You have a chance to win the football game despite playing poorly. You sail 1 pass out of bounds that should have been.
It was a poor decision. Why throw it when he's bracketed in double coverage? You got to go somewhere else.
You finally do throw to Julio in the end zone, but he's bracketed, like you said, and he has no chance of catching it. On 4th down, you
don't give him a chance.
You sail it out of the end zone. You get lucky with an illegal contact penalty, and then on your new play, the final play of the game, it'd have to be a Canadian Football League in order to be a wide enough.
It'd probably have to be LeBron James to go out there and make that catch.
And so, this is why, since the beginning of last season, they have thrown the ball to Julio Jones 20 times in the end zone, and they have completed one of those passes. This is why Julio Jones last year had half as many touchdown catches from Mohamed Sanu as he had from Matt Ryan. This team has too much talent to be awful in the red zone. And this was worse than getting blown out, because the reason you weren't good enough last year, the reason your season ended last year, that's how your first game of the year ended. Goal to go against the Eagles, and you can't punch it in.
This has to be on Matt Ryan. They gave him that big contract this offseason. He's the $150 million man. The fact that they weren't able to convert in the red zone, that they were 1 for 5, that's on him.
Yeah, maybe have Julio on the field.
Week 1 football. We got a lot to watch this weekend, a lot to talk about on Monday. That is it for us. We are back here Monday morning, 6:30 Eastern. Stay right here. Undisputed starts.